Welcome back, this is Andrew the Phoenix for Gaming Down Under. Before we get into it today, I'm going to issue a spoiler warning here. I'm going to do my absolute best not to spoil anything for these games that I'm going to be discussing, but just in case, consider this your notice. I'm going to be talking about games viewed as works of art. This has been a controversial subject for many people in recent years, as more and more games try to build themselves on aspect of visual appeal instead of focusing on gameplay and story content. So I'll just take a moment to explain, everything I'm going to say is just my opinion. I do not speak for anyone except myself, and you are all entitled to your own opinions, which I will respect whether we agree on something or not. When I was a child, growing up in the 90s, game development had reached a stage where it was far more functional and in-depth than the 80s era gaming. Devs are able to create more visually expansive worlds and give us longer and more complex games as a result. I'll always remember playing the original Tomb Raider on the PlayStation 1. It was the first real 3D game I ever played, having only had the Sega Master System before then. Although dated and seemingly low-tech by modern standards, it was a huge thing for us back then. Lara Croft was a new, diverse and visually stunning idea that we never knew we wanted. Breaking out into this new generation of gaming, more and more developers were trying to use this new tech to build visual games. Looking at examples such as Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, Crash being a more linear style platformer and Spyro being a more open world free roam collectathon, there were opportunities on both sides to show different visual styles. In my opinion, Crash Bandicoot had much more appealing visual dynamics. Having stages with tighter quarters meant that the textures and character details could be cleaner and higher quality, while Spyro's open level designs looked stunning in their own way. Using parallax scrolling backgrounds against large open areas where you could freely roam showed what was possible now. Other games such as Wipeout showed the power of the PS1 to have high-speed racing against multiple opponents all on one screen and still look amazing against futuristic settings. So what is art exactly? Some define it as an expression of an individual into a medium such as painting or drawing, music, even dancing and poetry. Others see art as anything that can move the emotions of another or make them feel something upon observing their work. This is where the line gets blurred a little. I personally see art as the latter, something that moves you, makes you feel emotions, or makes you feel connected to someone or something. In this instance, I fully believe that video games have the potential to be art. Whether a game is good is another thing altogether. Can a bad game still be art? If it isn't fun to play or fails to impress in the story department, can it still be art? My personal opinion is yes. I don't think the potential for a game to be art relies solely on it being a great game or a particularly influential game. It just has to have something of substance in it that cannot directly be compared to something else. Someone can take the Mona Lisa and make a copy, it will still be the Mona Lisa. Someone can take Mozart and make their own version of his music, it will still be Mozart. But creating something original and making it have an emotional impact on someone is the real deal to me. And I'm going to give you a few examples here of what I mean. Call of Duty is one of the longest running popular game franchises in the entire history of gaming. It has a large following, many follow-up games in its arsenal, and a huge fan base, even spawning a huge competitive online sport, challenging thousands of people across the globe against each other to see who the best shot is. But is it art? A lot of people see it, appreciate it, and take part in it, but no, I don't see it as art. It is a culture within gaming as a whole for sure, but just because something is popular does not make it art, as each follow-up of the game basically follows the same premise while refining the game mechanics or updating the visual style in some way. While Advanced Warfare showed us the true ability of next-gen gaming with its stunningly real motion capture graphics, it just makes it look more real, not more like art. Life is Strange is an indie-developed, episodic game based around a young woman who discovers she can rewind time, and even change the events of the past to impact her future. I got the first episode of this game with a Steam key from a package I purchased, and I left it sitting in my library for some time before giving it a look. Once I played the first episode, I immediately purchased the season pass and waited for the other episodes to come out. This is something I would not normally do, as I generally don't approve of games being released as episodes and having to pay in advance. But I made an exception in this case because I fell in love with this game. While it is true the main character can be seen as low energy or dull, I don't see it that way. There is no need for a character to be any certain way. This is how she is, and that's fine with me. The way the narrative is presented, the visual style of the game, the exciting and heart-pounding moments coupled with a choice system that can make you feel like a hero or crush your heart like a tomato in a vice, this game screams artistic value to me. There will be times when you have a choice to pull a trigger, there will be times when you can choose to tell the truth or to lie, there will be times when you cannot always save everyone you want to, and that is a simply amazing experience. From the backdrops to the little details around the world, there is so much to see here, separate from the story. You could spend so long just admiring the artistic nature in this title alone. I'm not a person who seeks out point-and-click or narrative-driven games. They generally struggle to hold my attention, and I get jittery sitting through long cutscenes, often missing things because I start daydreaming. But this game managed to hold me the whole time, while allowing me enough freedom to feel involved. So is this art? To me, absolutely. Emotional connections, emotional reactions, fear, pain, loss, happiness, joy, love, all these things are brought out and coupled with the visual style of this game. This is the original Mona Lisa, the original Mozart, the feelings that no other game has made me feel. Now, there is nothing wrong with wanting to pick up a digital shotgun and go blow some zombies to pieces or save the world from a terror threat. I have a special place in my heart for those types of games myself, but I play those games when I don't want to sit through cutscenes, when I don't really care too much about character development. They are stress relief games for me. So then we get into a grey area, a blurry line. Are there artistic shooter games? I'm thinking of a game. 2 words, 3 syllables, involves trench coats and sunglasses, with emotionally distant protagonists trying to save the world. Can you guess what I'm thinking of? If you said Deus Ex, congrats, gold stars all around. If you said The Matrix, go sit in the corner and think about what you've done. Deus Ex is a first-person shooter with RPG elements and an emphasis on stealth, with large open levels and varied locations throughout. One of my oldest friends introduced me to Deus Ex when I was about 15. At the time, it didn't really interest me. I was only interested in games where something died violently every few seconds. But when I was older and I had a better appreciation for art and games, I went back and I tried it again. Although this falls into the slightly outdated graphics category of older games, it still holds its own very well just on character development and gameplay alone. Strong story narrative, well-balanced choice system, and giving the player the feeling that you are really making a difference, it makes it art in the form of its ability to tell its story, if nothing else. While the futuristic dystopian style screams, I can be art too, its simple textures at the time pulled me out of the moment just a little bit too much. Deus Ex Human Revolution is a franchise sequel arriving much later on. While the story is brilliant and still gives you the same basic outlay, the game is dark, grainy, and tries a little bit too hard to be action movie-like. It is still a solid game though. Solid. Now there's an interesting word. Hideo Kojima is now legendary in the gaming world. Even if you have never played one of his games, you know someone who has, or you've heard his name mentioned at some point, and he has done something that will stand forever in the memories of gamers. He not only created a game that drew the player in and held their attention, while at the same time being visually stunning, with backdrops and set pieces you could just sit and stare at for hours, he created an entire franchise where every single game has managed to do exactly the same thing. Your heart will pound, your teeth will grind, your brow will sweat, and you'll shed a tear at the end of it. Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear franchise has set the standard for games as art from my point of view. No matter what type of gamer you are, if you took the story alone and set it out as one long movie, you would still be blown away by the writing and the art presented in this title. While Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain took an open world approach, the settings you will find yourself in, the characters you will come across, and the set pieces within the world are still eye-catching, and some in massive scale that just looks stunning. The Metal Gear Solid franchise is, without a doubt, a work of art in my opinion. The last game I'm going to talk about has not only affected the game industry as a whole, but is probably the best known franchise in the history of digital entertainment, Final Fantasy. If you don't have your own memories of this franchise, whether by playing or watching a game from the franchise at some point, I really do feel sorry for you because you are missing out on so much. The stories can be long, the character development can grow and change in dramatic ways, and the worlds are massive in scale, and as gamers, we soak it up like hungry gamer sponges. The basic theory is the first Final Fantasy you play will be the one you love the most. I personally love the franchise as a whole, even the adapted spin-offs and the child who tries but fails and then lives in the basement eating all your food and running up the power bill watching Netflix all day. Final Fantasy X was the first Final Fantasy game I played from start to finish when I was about 13 years old, and it still holds a special place in my heart. But the two characters I love the most and associate with the most, like many others I'm sure, are Cloud Strife and Zack Fair. Final Fantasy Crisis Core was my personal favourite game out of the franchise, and the story alone made me want to delete my save and start again before it ended so I didn't have to let it end. The scale of the worlds, the set pieces, the characters, the emotional connection to them, even the motivation of your antagonists can make you feel sorry for them, making you question yourself and your place within the game world. Like Shakespeare, the writing in this franchise is the art. While some of the games themselves are visually stunning and rich, dark and gloomy, bright and happy, the writing is the diamond on top of this crown of the gaming world. Many gamers think it's overrated. I know people who couldn't care less if they never picked up a copy of any of these games, and that's fine. Not everyone has the time to sit and finish these games. They do take a lot of time, and I find, even myself, I would struggle to sit down and finish a Final Fantasy game with my lifestyle as an adult now. But what these games do is leave an impression, an image in your mind, something that in the dark of night when my mind wanders, I think about those things. Cloud holding the Buster Sword above his head, triumphant. Zack and Aerith helping Cloud let go of his guilt. Sephiroth trying to become a god by merging with the Lifestream and willing to kill anybody to make that happen. Even Kadaj from Advent Children trying so hard to get to Genesis, which he basically sees as his mother. Though misguided, his pain made me feel so deeply for his plight. This is art to me. It's truly being enveloped by a story, by its characters, by the visual, the music, the atmosphere. Everything about this game is art to me. While Final Fantasy XIII and its tie-in sequel may not be on the same level as the earlier titles in the game, and Final Fantasy XIV Online cannot be categorized in the same way, art isn't art because it's flawless. It's art because you can see the flaws and still love it anyway. This has been my view of games as art, and there are so many more games out there. I can't cover them all, and everybody's taste will change so much as individuals. But this is why we love games. This is why we support our favourite devs, because there is so much out there to be explored. So thank you so much for listening once again. I really want to start some conversations about these things, get this moving and get it a wee bit more out there, which I know is going to be difficult, but I believe we can do it. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.